Welcome, Liz. I
Good to
am
be here.
I thank you. In the midst of your insanity and crazy professional day to say yes, I really appreciate it. You've been very important to me. We know each other, I guess, almost 10 years.
Hmm.
And you have definitely been a person that I lean into, that I love, that I trust. Um, Definitely a fellow traveler. So thank you.
It's my pleasure, Jerry. I say all the same here, and you're close to my heart, and I'm always happy to spend some time sharing with you.
Great. So I want to, before we dive into any of the questions, I just, where are you? Do you have anything you want to share about where you are in life around the idea of transition?
I, well, gosh, I'm in transition, right? I've felt, I'm 47, so since I turned 45, I've been clear that I'm in middle age, and that's a period of transition, right? And it's
Yeah.
trying to sift through. Um, who I've been and how much of that is actually my essence and how much of that I can let go of and move into something else. So
Yeah.
it's a process. I'd say it's been the best part of my life. And it's ongoing from what I can see. So I'm here for it.
So, what do you think in this season of transition that you are letting go of?
I am letting go. It's funny because I'm in my best professional season ever in terms of um, professional success, but I'm defining it differently. We all want to have businesses that allow us to have a good lifestyle and some financial security. Um, but also, I'm at this point looking at my career differently. I'm looking at it as um, a source of personal fulfillment among several sources, um, and getting satisfaction from mentoring younger people, from building a business, from learning. We're all dealing with AI, so dealing with those challenges. And what does it mean to be a middle-aged person when you have young people who are so used to dealing with AI and they do it so naturally? Where do I continue to add value? Looking at all those questions and looking at them, they're not from a place of fear, fear of getting older, fear of being outmoded, but a place of curiosity. And I think you can do that when you have the security of having worked in a career for a certain number of years and just knowing that you bring something to the table that few people can bring. You've acquired a certain amount of wisdom. And what does that look like to show up as a professional? And as in my personal life, I'm engaged. I'm in the longest relationship of my life so far. And so, what does that look like at 47 years old to be looking to be a married woman and sharing my life with someone? Um, what does that look like? So, we're all, and then we're all dealing with parents, right? My position as a daughter, right? What does it mean to show up for my parents now that they are aging?
Hmm.
All those things, but perhaps, the difference is now I look at those in terms of an integrated whole. Whereas when I was younger, I would sort of compartmentalize, right? And I would attach myself to any of those identities or roles. Now, these are just arenas where I show up as who I am. The more important question is, who am I? And what is the undercurrent that manifests itself in how I show up in all different areas of life? That's the real fun. That's the real that's where the real energy goes, and then everything else flows from there.
Yeah. Wow. amazing. And it's so wonderful to be reminded what it is to speak to someone in their 40s, because we've had the opportunity of speaking to people in their 80s and 90s, and to see, like basically you're not, at the beginning of your career, you're right in the middle of your career, and you're in it, like
Mhm.
you're really in career. And, speaking to people that are older, you know, we know we're sitting at the head of the table now, and to see, so it's just so, I would get so emotional because that's, you're so young, and, it just has so much more life to be living, and to see it through, you know, the lens that you now see it through. It's talk about being in flow. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you. And so, are there any parts of your story that that are asking to be shared or retold or honored, that that really yearns at your heart?
Wow. Hmm. I'm having a hard time coming up with something.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
me, Jerry. Help me out
yeah,
here.
yeah. It's interesting. I mean, listen, I'm the interviewer. This is not what, you and I, whenever we sit together, it's like, it's like banal, back and forth, back and forth. Um, I remember, just for me personally, it's childhood trauma. And, the whole, the work I did around my father, and how it's totally reframed. Like, so if you would have met me, like 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago,
Mm,
you know, the story would have been completely different, because I was still working out, the trauma, the grief, the resentment, the all of that. And now I'm definitely, so I am, when I speak about it, and I just did the other day at a book club, I looked over my shoulder, I'm like, who is that person? I so reframed,
mm,
and so, retold in a
yes.
way that offers light and illumination. And I would that would not have been my story, you know
Hmm. Yes.
years back.
Yeah. I think one thing that I think about a lot because I'm recently engaged is my role as a woman and my role in a family. So I had a very feminist upbringing with a wonderful mother who encouraged me to pursue all my professional ambitions. And having a family was not really something that was at the forefront for me. Um, through my adult life until now in middle age. It was not a priority. My priority was always my career and wanting to travel and do various things, but it was never something that was at the forefront for me. And I was so identified with my career that there really wasn't room. And I sort of grew up in that generation, and I see that even more with young women today, right? They are suspicious of having a relationship. They don't see the need because they can do perfectly fine on their own. Thank you. That was how I viewed it, and it was never really a priority. Um, I think the beautiful thing about middle age is. Um, I realized that okay, I'm on sort of the back half of life, in the best of ways, right? I mean, the Buddhists say meditate on your death, and that's paradoxically that's a source of joy when you realize, look, I don't have forever, so it's got to count. It's got to count, and then you look on your life, um, and you evaluate, and so I had to start to let go of some of that over identification with my career and say, who am I as maybe as a partner? What it would it be like to live life in partnership with someone else? There's always I'd say childhood experience, is looking at my family of origin and saying, okay, these are the messages I got from my family of origin. Sifting, again, the word sifting through comes to mind, sifting through what works for me, what might not work for me, what I might like to do differently, what I might like to look at in a different way, what I might like to interpret in a different way. Um, Talking to my parents about it, realizing that I don't know. I just had a child's perspective on their relationship and learning more about what it meant to them to be in a now 45-year marriage. Um, I won't be in a 45-year marriage until unless I live to through my 90s. But I envision a long-term relationship for my life. And so what does that mean to show up as a wife, as a partner, as a stepmother? Um, and and it's a very joyful thing. And it involves setting aside some of my prior conceptions, and it involves making space for something new to come in. And it involves receiving, just sitting back and saying, sometimes I don't know what this is going to look like. Let me see. Let me give up some control. How about that? Um,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. It's a spiritual journey, right? It's a
Yeah.
spiritual journey living in partnership with others, giving up control. I think as women, we are often trained by society, by the people who raised us to be very fearful, right? Because we're physically smaller, we're vulnerable in some ways, and we're taught to confront the world with armor.
Yes.
And that that can take us only so far. And so the beauty of this stage in my life is it's taken me as far as it can go, and I'm thankful for that. But what might it look like to do things in a different way, to set down the armor and receive with this security that I'm going to be fine?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big step.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the idea of vulnerability and trusting and letting go.
Mhm.
And it really, it's scary and so rewarding and so joyful, when you just are able, relationships, like I say, the messy, magnificent terrain of relationships, and that's as long as we're above ground. Look, I'm married 36 years. It's work. It's a lot of work and it's worth it.
Mhm.
It really is. So, and it changes, it changes with each decade. I feel like now we're, moving into a space where, no longer do we have parents, and now it's what is it going to look like to care for one another,
Mhm.
to really know that, we're each other's person in a different way, and it's so rewarding, so I'm happy for you. I am absolutely overjoyed and thrilled that in your 40s you're able to put down the armor. It took me 2 more decades to
Well, it's a process. I'm still working on it. I'm
it's
still
a
working on it.
process.
But it's incredibly rewarding. I think it's that Jim Carrey quote that I hope everybody achieves all the success and whatever they're looking for, so they can see that's really not where where it lies. That's not it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
to have the the good fortune of being able to achieve what I thought were my goals in life, what I thought were my dreams when I was a little girl, and realize like, okay, I know I can do that. I'll never wonder, but is there something more? And still having time to search that and to give of myself in that path is the most beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
it's all about surrender. It's about giving up control.
Yeah.
It's about learning what love really is.
Yeah.
Um, and that's an ongoing process. And it's just beautiful to be on that journey.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what might shift if you gave yourself permission to speak honestly without judgment?
Hmm. What might shift? Um, hmm. You know, I think, well, look, honesty is a continuum, right? Certainly there's a level of honesty now. First of all, with myself, that I didn't have 10 years ago. And that honesty shows up, and that freedom of fear from judgment shows up more and more. Um, Part of it is having a certain level of security, of knowing who I am and not basing my self-perception as much on what other people think of me. And part of that, it is just realizing I just I just don't want to give energy anymore to wearing a mask. Um, I have nothing to prove anymore, and I put too much energy into that already.
Yeah.
I'm done with it. I'm
Yeah.
done with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's a great place to be.
Yeah.
And I do think now I do feel the freedom to speak without being worried about judgment. I've found the church recently, in the
Mm.
last year. That's been a journey that I've been on. I was raised Catholic, and I abandoned the church for most of my life, because of terrible things that have occurred in the Catholic Church, because of the position on women or the position on LGBTQ individuals. To me, um, that was an institution that I wanted nothing to do with. Um,
Mm.
but then in my late 30s, and I didn't really have God in my life. I didn't. God was really sort of a non-entity. I thought irrelevant to my life. Um, in my late 30s, I found God through a series of events and synchronicities and a beautiful process. And in the last year, I've begun exploring the church and my Catholicism again. And I think that's something that I only could have done at this point in my life, because I had to approach it with that sense of security, that sense of knowing who I was. Frankly, I think a big reason I separated myself from the church for so long was because I saw it as judgment. And I was already so concerned with judgment, the judgment of the world, my judgment of myself. I didn't need God's judgment on me. And so that wasn't going to work for me. And I turned my back on God for a very long time. Um, but the years have taught me that I do live in the embrace of a loving presence.
Mm.
Too much abundance has come into my life that I can't take credit for. That fact, which seemed so doubtful to me in the past, now just it just seems obvious. It just seems true. And the more I live my life in accordance with that belief, the more true it becomes. So, the most recent step has been to look at the church again, to um, look at the Bible again, look at the tradition that I grew up in again. Um, and something that I also come to embrace in parallel at this point in my life is being part of a community. Um, I always thought, I was a lone wolf. I could do it myself. I didn't need anyone. And, paradoxically, the more I achieved or the more I was able to gain more power in my life, the more I realized that that power wasn't coming from isolation. The power is coming from being part of a community, um, being part of a community of women, being part of a family, being part of a partnership with my fiance, being part of his family, being part of my family, and being part of a spiritual community. That community is where I get my strength. And I think being able to translate that even into my business life and my business relationships has only made those relationships stronger. It's about integrity. And I mean, everything's integrated. One side feeds another, and everything just ends up being a manifestation of who I am, not a mask that I'm wearing or a compartmentalized life where um, I'm one person in the day and I'm another person in the evening. It just all starts to blend together more and more seamlessly. So, um, and then the security of knowing that I know who I am, I know what is true for me. And so I can be engaged in an institution like the church, um, or like business, my business, and realize that I am in it. I am not of it. The only thing that I'm of is God, and everything else is an arena where I show up and I try to contribute in this human world in my most human way with other human beings, understanding that I have flaws and that's okay, and they have flaws and that's okay, but we can still grow together. We can still nurture each other. We can still be on a path together. And
Mm.
it comes down again to non-judgment, right? If I'm concerned about judgment, it's because I'm judging. So it starts with me. It starts with me. I have to stop judging, have to stop judging institutions and look at what they have to offer with the strength that I know what's right and I can feed that and leave the rest behind.
Mm. That's amazing. You answered three of my questions in one response. I love it. So I'm going to jump to right now rapid fire questions. They're
Okay.
one word answers.
Okay.
So one word that describes your 40s.
Fabulous.
Fabulous 40s. I remember that. One thing women overthink.
Everything. Does that count?
Everything. It's exactly.
What do we
And
not
so,
overthink?
and something that this is funny, something you stopped apologizing for.
My appearance.
Liz, you are so gorgeous. Such a beautiful. A daily ritual that you cherish.
Prayer.
One belief that you've outgrown.
That I can be perfect. That I should be perfect.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so
That
the
I
third
should anything.
thing, I used to always say, like, I just end up shooting all over myself.
That's right. I've cut the should.
So, okay, so if you could sit beside your 25-year-old self, what would you whisper?
I would say just relax. You can't mess this up.
I get very emotional when we're all so hard on ourselves.
Yes.
And if this chapter is called What Now, how would you answer it today?
Joy. Joy is what's now.
Yeah, I love that. That's absolutely like what we're able to bring to any table, whether it's the work table, the church, the relationship, your, stepchildren to be, your parents, we get to be the light and the love. And it's
Yes.
a choice, right?
Yes, it's a choice. It's a choice, it's a practice, and it's that simple. If I'm living in joy, I'm not living in the past, I'm not living in the future. I'm just living in the present, and I'm embodying my essence. That's what I'm focusing on now. Am I bringing joy? And that manifests in every arena of life. It's a common thread. It's a superpower that we have. And
Love
and and what a blessing to see that.
that. Well, I love you so much.
I love you too, Jerry. You
And
are so special to me. You don't even know.
I feel like I want to like have a good cry. And I want to thank you again in the middle of your day. You're very high powered. Gosh, it's like, you know, you helped me so much realize, that I am smart enough and I am enough just by having you in my life, knowing your education and knowing what you've achieved in your career. And you love me so much that it helped me like see that wow, I must have pearls too. And
You're my superwoman.
uh, so thank you. I look
Thank you,
forward
Jerry. It's a
to the
privilege.
next, let's say realistically 4 decades together.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
Let's
here
do
for
it.
it.
Thank you. I love
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks again.